Welcome to Health Life Design podcast. John Eussen here, and today we're speaking with Cassandra Martin, Design Alchemist from Design Alchemy. Now, Cassandra, this is Series 2. Welcome back.
Thank you for having me.
We've really enjoyed listening to your journey about what the Design Alchemist is all about. But today we're delving a little bit deeper into what the business is about, and clearly mental health is a big component of the business, isn't it?
It is, yes.
Yeah.
What I'm focusing on in particular is medical-based research to then interpret into interior design, the built environment, but also human-centred design, so it's experience-based.
So what do you mean by experience-based?
Experience-based, so in particular the areas of application to the built environment can be inpatient, outpatient hospital programs, as well as treatment centres. And in that context, it is very much about the experience. It's human-centred design, but it's about how people feel genuinely in that experience, and we all have a psychological response when we're existing and experiencing any aspect of life, but particularly within built environment. It's important to provide elements that are cohesive but conducive to optimal mental health.
So for a minute, Cassandra, with the environment and as well about the experience, I guess what are some of the areas that we can or you can improve, I guess?
I think bringing down the elements, breaking those down for an environment. So initially what we do is we look at how people need to feel, particularly from a therapeutic perspective. So evidence-based through research in the medical areas, psychology, psychiatry, even pharmacology, understanding what chemical compounds do actually assist people who are enduring, for example, depression or anxiety, but also immunology is very important as well. And then that also brings into context molecular cell biology as well. So there's many components to break down into different elements and then introduce that into the interior in a constructive way that suits the purpose of the area. It might be a hospital space inpatient program. It could be an outpatient program. So those elements are going to bolster, support and assist the actual medical practitioner's purpose and set psychotherapy, for example.
As I understand it, and I'm relating to a personal experience, a friend of mine who suffers extreme OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder, and my understanding is that can be disorder on its own, but because of that, I won't say he or she, they then suffer from anxiety, which is related to that, and then depression as well, not necessarily in that order. So they suffer from all of those components. Yet I understand that some people can just have depression without the OCD and etc. So they are different disorders, but they can be grouped into the one problem as well. How does an environment cater for that? Is it you have to cater for the depression person, the depressive person, and so forth, or is it holistic?
Mentioning holistic, that's very good because that's what the nature of Design Alchemy is providing holistic responses that provide that nurtured environment to assist and better the person's own conditions. So as you mentioned with depression and anxiety, they're commonly associated together. It may start out as OCD and present the anxiety stronger, but depression is commonly linked and vice versa as well. But what can also be involved with both depression and anxiety, it can be referred to as the trifecta, if you like, is chronic fatigue.
Right.
So it does relate to the immune system as well. So psychoneuroimmunology is actually the study of the central nervous system, relationship to the immune system. But how all of that research correlates into answering your question to provide a space that allows people to feel better whilst they're experiencing. So colour is very important, and in particular, one doesn't want to ignite fear, one doesn't want to ignite any levels of agitation, because that can be a common behavioural symptom, if you like, for both depression and anxiety. And in particular with OCD, there's a compulsive need naturally to fulfill a ritual, if you like. And it is designed by the person suffering to basically relieve those particular symptoms, because the anxiety itself, not only emotionally, has a response, and psychologically there's a physiological response as well. And in particular with anxiety, it can make you feel very sick in context of headaches and nausea, stomach upset. You can spend a good time in the bathroom, on the toilet, unfortunately. And so I would say key to OCD treatment in a built environment is bringing together elements that actually calm the nervous system.
Yes, yeah.
So it is what is being affected directly with anxiety. So colour is important, but connection to nature as well.
Yes.
So creating more serene environments. It could be working through the green palette, the blue palettes, but it also still can work through neutral palettes. For a hospital, it needs to work across the board and more generally. But when you're talking about, for example, someone's home, to assist them in their therapy and ultimately their recovery, it's important to tailor to the personality and to get a little knowledge on the psychology of that particular individual that is also external to the condition itself.
It's interesting listening to this. I have previously worked in an office environment that was enclosed, beautiful interior space, but no natural light. And I mean, I say this with respect. I don't suffer from any of those conditions, yet I was affected by the lack of natural light. It made me less productive, and I didn't realise why until I moved environments where there was natural light.
Yeah.
So for me, that's very important. How important is natural light in your design process?
Natural light is very important, but there are some circumstances of the built environment where that's not possible, so it needs to be replicated. So artificial lighting can assist, but sometimes natural daylight lighting can be a little bit too cool based, a little too blue based, so it's important to still have a warmth element. We are, as natural beings, very responsive to our natural environment. Another area of research is biophilia, which is the study of our relationship or our innate connection to nature. So when we do have natural elements, be it naturally provided, we might have a beautiful view that we can incorporate into the design and have that inside-outside connection. But in circumstances where the builds don't actually have access to natural light or natural viewscape of nature, then it's a matter of interpreting to bring it in through the elements. So artificial light, but having that natural colour tone of sunlight is very important. It is important to bring in nature directly, but also interpretively as well in context of design and creativity. But bringing in direct natural elements, so particularly indoor plants, I believe a very vital part of the health, just in particular to the air. And most importantly is having sensual responses. So all our senses need to be engaged. So there needs to be tactility in terms of smell, because that's a very powerful responder to memory. And in particular, someone who may be suffering OCD, it can be symptomatic of traumatic abuse from the past. And the reason the person has developed the OCD symptoms is to have a sense of control in their life where someone else has perhaps taken away the control.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. I'm just so engrossed in what you're saying. I love the science behind this. I also love the life experience. You've really tapped into an area that that people haven't, and clearly that's why you're here. And I'm repeating myself, I know, but it's so timely with what's going on with mental health. Not just locally, but around the world. And for people like you to be making such a difference to these people's lives must be so satisfying.
It is. I think the greatest reward for me is assisting people to be aligned with their own path towards peace. And naturally, I hope that they arrive at peace. So with symptoms of depression and anxiety in particular, there are reasons for that. And sometimes people can have repressed memories. So it's important to not only design a space for the right here and right now, but there is a predictability of what they may need based on their symptoms going forward into the future as they do recover and overcome that complex adversity as well.
Yeah, amazing. Now I'm going to read from your, there's a piece of paper here that you've given me, and the research sectors are, we have psychology, we have immunology, we have endocrinology, we have molecular cell biology, neurology, psychiatry, pharmacology, behavioural science. My goodness, the list goes on.
Yes. There's so much to understand. I would say my guiding force is nature and understanding nature. And through these medical science sectors, that is a strong part of their own research, is understanding. And I value the fact that there are many people who are experts in their particular industry. They spend decades researching, studying. So I'd like to provide people with my ability to interpret the data, to represent interior built environment that assists in medical care. So mental health care is very important to me, and I have a strong focus to work towards optimal mental health to assist people wherever I can. And beyond what I do, I also have a very strong base of medical support in the work that I do. So I'm able to provide people with reference to those individuals that might assist people through their, whether it be psychological care, psychiatric care, or different organisations that they can provide I suppose a sense of meaning, because there's a lot of charity work that can assist people to be involved with as well. Yes. So I'm ultimately inspired by what I don't know. So I like to seek to understand. Yes. I suppose that's quite a passion for me. And interpreting the data of what is understood today and being worked on for the future, I think is vital, because whether it be mental health, whether it be physiological health issues that people are enduring, the hospital space, treatment spaces, they can be daunting, particularly if you're a first-time visitor as well through the process. So initially putting people's central nervous system at ease is a great basis foundation to start.
I'm feeling this right now. You've got a lovely sense of balance about you, and clearly that's part of your own journey, but also the research that you've undertaken. That's one of your assets, I think, in how you deal with people. But I guess, and I say this with respect, the people that are suffering with these conditions often aren't rational because of the process that they're going through. How do you give them that sense of balance?
I think the first place to centre with is empathy, because at the end of the day, this is human-centred design. It's also important to have a focus on nature and the importance of sustainability with nature, but connecting people directly with nature in an empathetic context helps them to understand themselves. Myself, I have had my own personal experience of complex adversity, of which I've overcome. But I understood through that the only way I would genuinely overcome and be able to assist people in a very constructive, meaningful way, I need to understand. So an empathetic foundation for a process for the individual to understand themselves, also to understand that it's not their fault, to break down the shame that people do feel with depression and anxiety. Even for physiological conditions, people can still feel a sense of shame because, in particular, they're not providing or delivering as they used to as well. So empathy would be the key.
Yeah, and clearly that's you're in that position where you've been through the process. So there, and I say this, I keep using that word, I say it with respect again. Yeah. It's easy for you to sit there and say, don't feel shame. But for those, I mean, we're reaching a large audience here with what we're doing, and part of your trilogy of these seminars is to share the detail. But for somebody who's listening that still holds the shame and they want to reach out but they don't know how to, what advice can you give them?
I would say initially, go out into nature Just find the places that you feel connected with. So it could be the ocean, the beach areas, coastal areas, it could be bushland areas, could be forest areas. But even just giving yourself permission, and I think that's probably the first step, particularly when you feel shame, because eventually along the way you will arrive at the discovery that you're not to blame.
Amazing.
But to start that, giving yourself permission to do what feels holistic for you, what feels therapeutic, but keep it simple to start with. So venturing out into those natural spaces, just observe. Don't put pressure on yourself to figure things out right now, because that's another contributor to shame, is the unrealistic expectation one might put on themselves to have it all worked out right now.
Yeah, amazing.
So take it step by step. Understand nature from your own perspective and observation, but an analogy I arrived at, which once I arrived actually helped me considerably in context of my own adversity, is that I genuinely love, in the outdoors, I genuinely love feeling a very small part of something very grand. So that humility experience is very much me, but in context of my adversity, there were people that took advantage of that. But as I moved through recovery and experiencing nature that had impact for me, particularly birds, particularly trees as well, but also the ocean. So looking at the world, nature, life, at a just broader scale, much broader than yourself. And what it allowed me to arrive at is, yes, I acknowledge that I love the humility of feeling a very small part of something so grand, and that feeds my passion to learn what I don't understand. But moving on from that, the reality is we as individuals are something very small of something so grand that we don't have the full capacity of understanding. Science hasn't got the full capacity of understanding everything.
Yeah.
So, sorry to interrupt you. So if, for example, I'm a small part in something so grand, then those that affected me in a negative way are also very small.
Very wise words, I must say. And it's about being grounded and going back to nature. And
absolutely.
Cassandra York, thank you for being on Health Life Design. And
thank you.
How do people contact you as the Design Alchemist?
To contact me directly, just my email, cassandra@designalchemy.com.au. I also have an Instagram page, which is at designalchemy_official.
Well, I can't wait for Series 3.
Completely new topic.
Thank you, Cassandra York, Health Life Design Podcast. Thank you.
Thank you.